Corporal Anya Petrova hated cleanup duty. There was no glory in picking through the bones of a dead world, no adrenaline rush of battle. Only the grim accounting of loss. The stench of scorched metal and alien chitin hung in the humid air like a funeral shroud. Her boots crunched on the ash-blasted ground, each step a reminder that victories came at a terrible cost. The former colony shimmered with the ruins of its once bright civilization, twisted obelisks of plasteel craters where bustling plazas had been. Anya wasn't part of the strike force that had razed this place. Her job came after securing the wasteland, tallying the remains, ensuring the kind of sterile order that generals favored. Then came the flicker of movement, a splash of vivid blue against the monochrome wasteland. Not a threat the sensor grid would have howled in alarm. Anya lowered her rifle, her grip tight not out of aggression, but weariness. It was a child. An alien child. Anya assumed male based on the vibrant colors cowered behind a chunk of what had likely been a decorative fountain. Too young to be a soldier, too alone to be anything but lost. Terror radiated off him, not in screams, but in the wide, unblinking stare of his multifaceted eyes. Anya's chest tightened. Not pity, at least, not exactly. A jagged shard of memory pierced her, a younger version of herself clutching a singed doll amidst a different kind of ruin. But she'd hardened since then, built the necessary calluses around her heart. "Kid," she said, voice deliberately neutral, "I'm not here to hurt you." Lies were a soldier's trade, even ones meant to soothe. Still, she kept her rifle lowered, her focus on appearing as non-threatening as possible. The child didn't respond, but his eyes flickered between her and the blasted wasteland. Every inch of his slender form quivered. Anya weighed her options. Protocol dictated reporting the discovery, letting the brass handle it. Yet something in the child's sheer desolate terror held her in place. "All right, kid," she muttered more to herself than to him. "Looks like it's just you and me for a while." The first hours blurred together. Anya focused ruthlessly on the practical, finding a sliver of stable shelter amidst the wreckage, scrounging for intact water rations, establishing a perimeter. The setting sun painted the shattered sky in blood-streaked hues, turning the ruins into a monstrous tableau. Still, the child hadn't moved. He'd curled into a tight ball, a creature designed for shimmering palaces and manicured gardens, now reduced to a scrap of frightened blue in a desolate wasteland. The contrast was stark, but Anya saw it echoed in herself. They were both misplaced, both survivors forged in the crucible of war. A wave of bitter cynicism washed over her. This was no time for sentimentality, not when the next patrol might be hostile, or the very air could still hold invisible toxins. Anya forced herself to swallow a ration bar, the dry crumbles grating in her throat. Across the makeshift camp, the child watched her eat with a peculiar intensity. Tentatively, Anya broke off a piece of the ration and tossed it across the distance between them. It landed with a soft thud, a speck of pale beige against the ash. The child didn't move for an agonizingly long moment. Then, with deliberate slowness, he scooted forward until a slender, four-fingered hand extended. The ration disappeared within his clasp. There was no audible thank you, just a flicker of his multifaceted eyes that Anya couldn't decipher. Night fell with brutal swiftness, the shattered moon casting a pale glow. The wind whipped through the ruined structures, whistling and moaning like a chorus of mournful ghosts. Anya settled against a slab of ferrocrete, rifle across her lap, and tried to focus on the comforting logic of her tactical display. Perimeter grids, sensor logs, the reassuring hum of her suit's life support. Sleep was an elusive luxury. Every creak of settling metal, every rustle of the wind, sent her adrenaline spiking. It wasn't the fear of enemies Anya had stared down worse. It was the weight of responsibility for a creature who looked at her with an unnerving blend of terror and expectation. As a cold dawn broke, the child was still huddled in his makeshift nest, his form barely visible under a tattered tapestry. Anya considered her dwindling options. There had to be a way to alert her superiors without leaving the child vulnerable. Yet something in her recoiled at the thought of turning the situation back into standard military procedure, of handing him over to faceless bureaucrats and sterile laboratories. Survival had hardened her. It hadn't made her heartless. Anya spent the morning hours fortifying their haven, her military instincts overriding sentimentality. She salvaged chunks of debris, creating a semblance of a barrier to obscure them from casual passers-by. The child observed her with silent curiosity, occasionally flinching at the screech of twisted metal, but never hindering her. The problem wasn't shelter, it was communication. Anya cycled through the standard linguistic protocols on her suit's comm unit. Nothing. No match to any recorded language in the databases, alien or human. Frustration simmered beneath her skin. "Come on, kid," she grumbled, mostly to break the oppressive silence. "Gonna have to work with me here." She mimed eating, pointing at her remaining rations, then gestured at him. The child tilted his head, facets of his eyes swirling with incomprehension. Anya sighed. Time for the universal language of toddlers. She broke off pieces of ration, carefully laying out a trail leading towards an untouched packet. This time, the child understood, curiosity overcoming fear. He crept forward with agonizing slowness, then snatched up the offered food, devouring it in quick, frantic bites. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Anya let herself savor the tiniest shred of relief. It wasn't just about feeding the kid, it was a breakthrough, however minimal. Hours stretched into an eternity, punctuated by Anya's supply checks and the child's cautious exploration of their makeshift sanctuary. When exhaustion gnawed at her, Anya settled against the makeshift wall, eyes scanning the horizon. Habit, not active fear. She was too honed a soldier to let her guard down completely. A flicker of movement above startled her. A bird, or its alien equivalent, circled in the bruised sky. It swooped lower, and Anya caught a flash of improbable color feathers, not in sober grays or browns, but iridescent violet. She jerked upwards, then stifled a curse. An animal was low priority, but the burst of movement could attract unwanted attention. The child, mirroring her tension, huddled closer. Anya weighed her options. She had a tranquilizer dart in her kit, but using it felt unnecessarily cruel. Instead, she lowered herself slowly, reaching for a shard of broken mirror from the rubble. A risky gamble, but desperation fueled her ingenuity. Holding the mirrored shard towards the sunlight, Anya carefully angled it, sending a flash of reflected light towards the circling bird. The creature squawked in alarm, veering away. One simple trick, a child's game, and they were a bit safer. The absurdity of the situation threatened to crack her composure. Here she was, a grizzled soldier with a dozen campaigns under her belt, reduced to bird-scaring duty on some blasted world no one would find on a star map. Yet the child beside her, wide-eyed and still smeared with dust, stirred something almost gentle. It was an unfamiliar sensation, unwelcome, but Anya couldn't quite squash it. Anya woke to the feeling of being watched. Not a threat, exactly more a disconcerting intensity that prickled along her skin. She forced her eyes open, the world blurring back into focus. The child was crouched inches from her, a sculpture of wide-eyed curiosity. His multifaceted eyes shifted and swirled, reflecting the dim pre-dawn light with surprising luminosity. Up close, his skin wasn't just blue, but a shimmering mosaic of turquoise, teal, and indigo. He was delicate, almost heartbreakingly beautiful. Anya stifled a grunt. Beautiful wasn't a word in a soldier's vocabulary, at least not one that applied to a creature they weren't intending to kill. Yet she couldn't deny the strange aesthetic of the child, a stark contrast to the brutal efficiency of her own scarred form. He extended a hand towards her face, hesitating, then withdrew it just as quickly. Anya held her breath, unsure how to respond. The vulnerability in his gesture unnerved her almost more than any aggression could have. "Easy, kid," she murmured, the words barely audible. "No sudden movements." He blinked at her, those strange eyes shimmering, and to Anya's astonishment, he echoed the sounds back. Her name, or perhaps her rank, garbled and mispronounced, but undeniably an attempt at communication. This time, the surge of emotion she felt wasn't cynicism. It was the heady shock of possibility. The day passed in a blur of incremental progress. The child mimicked her, clumsily at first, but his ability to learn bordered on uncanny. He understood simple gestures, associated movements with objects. Anya began with practical matters: water, food, pointing to the ruins and miming danger. She even dared to broach the elephant in the room, or rather, the alien child in their makeshift shelter. Anya activated her suit's recorder, spoke slowly and clearly, pointing at herself. "Human. Anya." Then she gestured at him. The child repeated the word human, his musical voice garbling the consonants. Then, touching his own chest, he let loose a trilling sound, a melody rather than a name. He repeated it, insistent. Anya filed it away, a small piece in an impossibly large puzzle. For now, practicality had to trump unraveling the enigma of his species. As the day waned, one thought consumed her: they'd survived. Somehow, in this desolate wasteland, she and the alien child had forged the fragile beginnings of a truce. It was far from friendship, and even further from the cold calculations of a military report. But as the child finally drifted to sleep, curled into a trusting ball against her side, Anya felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared to name: hope. The calm crackled to life with the harsh static of an incoming transmission. Anya lunged for it, her heart pounding a frantic tattoo against her ribs. "Corporal Petrova," the voice barked, cutting through the distortion. "Report status. Over." A rush of conflicting emotions washed over Anya: relief, a pang of guilt, and the sharp stab of fear. She delayed the inevitable, clinging to their fragile sanctuary, but now reality intruded. "Corporal, do you copy?" Her commander's tone held the impatient edge of a man used to instant obedience. Anya glanced at the sleeping child. This was it, the moment their tenuous connection would shatter. With a heavy sigh, she keyed the comm. "Corporal Petrova here. Sir, I've encountered a complication." The word hung between them, heavy with unspoken implications. "A complication, Corporal? Be specific." Anya hesitated, then chose her words with the precision of a tactical strike. "Non-combatant. Civilian. Juvenile." 1,000 explanations and justifications buzzed in her head, but the core truth had to come first. Silence stretched across the comm, broken only by the insistent crackle of static. When her commander spoke again, his voice was clipped, devoid of emotion. "Understood, Corporal. Hold your position. Extraction team inbound. ETA 2 hours. Over and out." The transmission cut off, leaving Anya alone with the echoing silence of the ruined world. 2 hours. 2 hours until neatly uniformed soldiers would descend upon their haven, until protocols and procedures would replace the desperate connections she'd formed with the alien child. A wave of defiance coursed through her. It wasn't rational, wasn't logical, but in that moment, Anya despised the faceless efficiency of the military machine she'd served for so long. "Kid," she whispered, her voice barely louder than a rustle of the wind. Her fingers brushed through the vibrant blue hair as gently as she could manage. "Wake up." The child stirred, blinking sleepily, before the memory of their situation flooded back into his multifaceted eyes. "Up and at M," Anya ordered, her tone gruff, but with an urgency the child seemed to understand. "We gotta fly." It wasn't entirely a lie. Escape was a long shot, foolhardy even. But surrender, handing the child over as nothing more than an anomalous specimen, didn't sit well with the hardened sliver of conscience Anya had left. They wouldn't go down without trying. Something, perhaps the echo of her own orphan childhood, simply refused. Anya's escape plan was less a plan and more an act of desperation. Their haven was too exposed, easily located by a dedicated search team. The ruins, however, offered a slim chance, a labyrinth of tumbled structures and potential hiding spots. "Listen up," she instructed the child, miming as she spoke. "We hide, understand? Bad people coming. Must be quiet." His eyes widened, but he nodded, a quick, jerky motion. There was a spark of intelligence behind the fear, a potential ally if Anya could only harness it. She salvaged what supplies she could: rations, her medkit, the precious water packs. It was a pitiful arsenal with which to defy the military machine, but Anya was fueled by a mix of fury and a stubborn sort of hope. Their flight was a frantic scramble through the wreckage. Anya guided the child through the maze of shattered ferrocrete and broken duraglass, the echoes of her own flight from childhood terrors ringing in her ears. Twice they froze as search teams swept past, their voices carrying over the wind. By sheer luck, or perhaps guided by the child's senses that seemed attuned to the intricate ruins, they found a sliver of sanctuary, a maintenance shaft half buried in the rubble. Anya wriggled inside, pulling the child after her. It was suffocating, smelling of rust and decay, but it offered concealment. Hours slithered past. Anya rationed their dwindling water, forcing herself to swallow despite the parched tightness in her throat. The child huddled against her, trembling with a mix of fear and exhaustion. Sleep was impossible, her ears straining for the sounds of pursuit. A pang of guilt twisted in her gut. She dragged a child into a desperate gamble, likely doomed to fail. What fueled her wasn't a grand act of altruism, but the simmering rage of a soldier tired of being a cog in a heartless machine. Yet, looking at the child's luminous eyes filled with terrified trust, she couldn't bring herself to regret her recklessness. When the sounds finally came, it wasn't the harsh shouts of soldiers, but a soft, keening whistle. The child perked up, then echoed the call, a mournful, melodic sound that pierced the heavy silence of the underground tomb. Anya tensed, ready to defend their pitiful hiding spot. But it wasn't an attack. A reply came, then another, a chorus of alien voices warbling through the ruins. Relief washed over Anya, quickly followed by the sharp realization of her miscalculation. The child wasn't alone. His people would be coming, and no power in the galaxy could stand against an alien force descending to retrieve one of their own. The shaft shuddered as something massive landed above them. Anya readied her rifle, her instincts screaming at her to fight, even against impossible odds. The child whimpered, clinging to her. "Hold on, kid," she mumbled, the words more for herself than him. This was it, the foolish end of their defiance. The makeshift hatch above creaked open with a metallic groan, sunlight spilling into their meager sanctuary. Anya braced herself, blinking against the sudden glare. Instead of armored soldiers, an intricate network of tendrils descended, shimmering with the same bioluminescent hues as the child's skin. They wrapped gently around the child, lifting him with surprising strength. Anya tensed, ready to strike, but the tendrils ignored her, focused solely on their precious cargo. A trilling melody filled the shaft, alien voices woven with concern and relief. One tendril extended towards Anya, not in a threatening gesture, but with a hesitant curiosity. Exhaustion and the sheer absurdity of the situation washed away her fight or flight instincts. Slowly, she reached out, her scarred fingers brushing against the smooth, luminescent surface. The tendril curled gently around her wrist, not painful, but a firm pressure. With a smooth, inexorable motion, Anya was lifted from the shaft into the harsh sunlight of the ruined world. Dozens of aliens surrounded her, not with weapons drawn, but with an air of intense focus. Their multifaceted eyes, shimmering with the same colors as the child, examined her with disconcerting intensity. None of the arrogance she'd half expected was there, only a sense of urgency and a deep, thrumming concern. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and Anya instinctively tightened her grip. The tendril responded instantly, guiding her towards a hovering, organic-looking ship unlike any she'd ever encountered. "Wait," she rasped, fumbling for her comm unit. "Please." Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet the aliens paused. Anya keyed the comm, her hands shaking with a mix of adrenaline and defiance. "Corporal Petrova here," she began, voice cracking with exhaustion. "Mission objective retrieved. Non-hostile contact established. Recommend diplomatic channels. Over." Silence buzzed on the comm. She had no way of knowing if her message had even been received, much less taken seriously. Yet she'd done her part, played her final hand in a desperate gamble for peace. The tendrils released her with a fluid gentleness. The child, cradled in their embrace, extended a slender hand towards her. Anya hesitated, then mirrored the gesture, her fingers brushing against his. A simple touch, a tiny bridge across a chasm of difference. The ship lifted into the air with an uncanny grace, dwindling into a speck of blue against the ravaged sky. Anya was left standing amidst the ruins, a lone soldier on a dead world, her carefully structured reality shattered beyond repair. The debriefing was an ordeal. Anya sat in a sterile room, ringed by grim-faced officers and analysts. The questions came rapid fire, descriptions of the aliens, the child's abilities, every minute detail of their encounter. Anya answered mechanically, her words stripped of emotion, mirroring the cold efficiency around her. They dissected her actions, analyzed her decisions, debated endlessly whether she should be reprimanded for insubordination or credited with making unprecedented first contact. None of it felt real. It was a game of strategy, of military politics, and Anya was just a pawn to be played. The missing piece in their perfect tactical analysis was the weight of the child's hand in hers, the fragile bond forged in the rubble. They saw aliens, a threat, a curiosity. Anya saw the echo of a terrified child not so different from the one she'd once been. Corporal, her commanding officer, interrupted the endless barrage of questions. "There's a complication." "Another one, sir?" Anya replied, unable to mask the weariness in her voice. The officer hesitated, a flicker of unease crossing his weathered features. "Diplomatic channels. The aliens, they insist on communicating solely with you." A stunned silence descended upon the room. Anya couldn't fathom it. Her, a grunt, a nobody in the grand galactic scheme, elevated to the role of diplomat simply because she'd shown a shred of human kindness. They relocated her. No longer a prisoner under scrutiny, she was given quarters befitting an honored guest, a bewildering shift of status. Anya paced the room, the unfamiliar luxury mocking her. They wanted her to be bait, an asset to lure in the aliens, the linchpin of some delicate interstellar negotiation. Sleep wouldn't come. Instead, flashes of memory assaulted her. The child's luminous eyes, the warmth of the alien tendril against her skin, the haunting melody of their voices. Had she done the right thing? Had she condemned her own world with a foolish act of trust? The comm unit buzzed, shattering the tense silence. "Corporal Petrova, the alien delegation has arrived," a voice announced, clinical and detached. A wave of nausea washed over Anya. She wasn't a diplomat, not a politician. She was just a soldier, thrust into an impossible role. Yet the memory of the child's fearful trust gave her a stubborn sort of courage. She'd gotten them this far, and she wouldn't fail now. The meeting hall was a testament to human arrogance. Gleaming metallic surfaces contrasted with the organic, flowing forms of alien technology. The aliens, a dozen or so, their luminous skin shifting in hypnotic patterns, seemed curiously dwarfed within the expansive, artificially lit space. It was a subtle power play, Anya realized, and a reminder that humans held the home field advantage. The lead negotiator, a crisp diplomat whose career likely didn't involve scavenging ruins and befriending lost alien children, gave her a curt nod. "Corporal, I trust you are prepared?" Anya squared her shoulders. "As I'll ever be, sir." The negotiator motioned towards the aliens. "Please begin." Anya took a step forward, painfully aware of the scrutiny focused on her every move. It was ridiculous. She, the lowest grunt on the totem pole, was their best chance at making peace with a species no one understood. "Greetings," she began, her voice surprisingly steady. She'd rehearsed possible phrases, but they felt empty, lifeless. Instead, she drew upon the only language that felt genuine. Addressing the child, held protectively amongst his people, she said, "Are you safe?" Her words, translated into a garbled approximation of their language, hung in the tense air. The child blinked, his large eyes fixed on her. Then, with a heartbreaking earnestness, he nodded. A collective sigh, a trilling melody, rippled through the alien delegation. Hope, fragile and unexpected, stirred within Anya. Understanding might be a distant dream, but a foundation was laid. Her simple act of kindness had pierced through the fear and mistrust. The diplomat beside her sputtered, "Corporal, I hardly think." Anya cut him off. "Permission to continue in my own way, sir?" Her voice held the steely edge honed by years of barking orders on scorched battlefields. The diplomat hesitated, then something in her unwavering gaze must have overridden his protocol-driven mind. He retreated a step, confusion warring with grudging respect on his face. Anya turned back to the aliens. Mimicking the gestures of care she'd shown the child, she offered a ration bar, a universal token of peace. The hesitant curiosity, the careful acceptance, it was achingly familiar. a bridge of shared experience, of vulnerability, and offered trust, stretched across the abyss between their species. The negotiation process, the endless exchange of words and gestures, was just beginning. Anya knew there was no guarantee of lasting peace, that the chasm of cultural difference was vast. Yet the foundation was laid, not built on military might or technological superiority, but on the simple, profoundly human act of showing kindness towards a lost, frightened child. The news spread with the destructive force of a star-going supernova. The kindness soldier, they dubbed her, the moniker splashed across media feeds and whispered in hushed tones among the populace. Anya cringed at the title, the simplification of a complex situation boiled down to a catchy slogan. Yet she couldn't deny the shift it represented. The aliens, with their unsettling beauty and their profound sense of interconnectedness, fascinated and frightened humanity in equal measure. Anya became the symbol that soothed the fear, proof that coexistence was possible, that compassion could triumph over instinctual suspicion. It wasn't smooth sailing. Hardliners called her naive, claiming the aliens were a Trojan horse, lulling humanity into a false sense of security. Opportunists painted her as a figurehead, a tool to manipulate public sentiment towards their own agendas. Anya endured it with gritted teeth, her focus unwavering on the tenuous bond she'd forged. They transferred her to a new role, awkwardly titled Interspecies Liaison. Her duties were as uncharted as the frontier she had inadvertently stumbled into. Days were filled with tedious decoding of alien gestures, fumbling through linguistic approximations, and enduring the scrutiny of scientists who viewed her as the key to unlocking a biological treasure trove. Evenings brought a different kind of isolation. She had quarters now, spacious and meticulously kept, but they held the hollow echo of a missing child's laughter. Her memories were her most cherished and painful possession. The softness of alien skin, the shared warmth in the desolate ruins, the haunting melody of their voices. The loneliness was a constant companion. Her fellow soldiers kept a wary distance. She was no longer just one of them. The higher-ups treated her with a mix of cautious respect and thinly veiled suspicion. Anya had become an anomaly, a wild card disrupting the carefully ordered military machine. One evening, as the twin moons cast long shadows across her room, the comm unit crackled to life. It wasn't the clipped tones of a commander or the eager queries of a scientist. It was a hauntingly familiar melody, the child's voice relayed through layers of translation. "Corporal Anya?" he asked hesitantly, his accented words tearing at a tightly held scab of longing. "Yes," she breathed, her voice hoarse. "Yes, it's me." A fractured conversation ensued, filled with stumbles and misunderstandings, yet overflowing with an unspoken need to connect. Anya learned fragments of their world, shimmering crystalline cities, vibrant tapestries woven with history, a reverence for music that transcended mere entertainment. The child, she discovered, had a name, a melodious trill that her tongue couldn't quite replicate. In turn, he learned of Earth, of its tumultuous past and its stubborn hopes. It was a bridge woven from tenuous threads, fragile but unbreakable. When the transmission ended, Anya sat in the fading twilight, tears streaming down her face. They were tears of relief, of joy, and of a bittersweet ache that no amount of military discipline could suppress. She wasn't just a soldier anymore, or a diplomat, or a tool in a galactic chess game. She was a bridge, however flawed, between two worlds teetering on the verge of understanding. The summons came unexpectedly. Not a barked order through a comm unit, but an elaborately embossed invitation delivered to her quarters under the guise of galactic etiquette. The aliens requested her presence, not in a sterile negotiation room, but in their temporary enclave within the sprawling metropolis. Anya hesitated. It was an unprecedented invitation, a blurring of the lines meticulously drawn to separate them. Yet to refuse was unthinkable, a rejection of the trust tentatively extended. The enclave was a shock to her senses. Shimmering structures seemed to grow from the earth itself, their iridescent surfaces reflecting the dazzling sunlight in a kaleidoscope of color. The air hummed with a soft, melodic energy, the thrum of a collective unlike anything human settlements produced. She was guided through winding pathways bordered by bioluminescent flora, escorted by aliens whose forms shimmered with respectful curiosity. Every part of her screamed soldier assess the terrain, look for weaknesses, anticipate a potential attack. But the child, his name a whispered talisman against her instincts, walked beside her, his presence a reassurance she didn't fully comprehend. They reached a clearing where a circle of aliens awaited. Anya recognized the subtle variations in their skin tones, the intricate patterns that bespoke families, clans, a social order built on connection rather than hierarchy. With a grace that belied their size, they parted. In the center stood a shimmering sphere, a portal into a world unseen. Corporal Anya, the translator's voice held a note of wonder. They extend an invitation to see their world. Anya blinked back the sudden tears that blurred her vision. They trusted her enough, this soldier hardened by war, to step foot on their sacred ground. It was an honor beyond words, a leap of faith that humbled her. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I would be deeply honored. With newfound reverence, she approached the shimmering sphere. The child, his multifaceted eyes wide with a mix of anticipation and childish excitement, reached out and clasped her hand with surprising strength. Together, they stepped through. The sensation was like diving into an ocean of pure light. Anya gasped, overwhelmed by a whirlwind of color, a symphony of alien sounds, an intoxicating scent that seemed to seep into her very pores. When the kaleidoscope settled and she could focus once more, she realized she was standing within a crystalline city, breathtaking in its organic perfection. They stood upon a viewing platform, and before her stretched a panorama of a world teeming with vibrant aliveness. Rivers shimmered with rainbow hues, waterfalls cascaded in notes of resonating song, and lush forest pulsed with a shared luminescence. Anya stumbled, her knees buckling under the sheer wonder of it all. The child, his eyes gleaming, steadied her. She understood then, with a clarity that shook her to the core, that their roles had shifted. No longer was she the protector and he the vulnerable. Here, on this breathtaking world, he was the strong one, sharing the beauty of his home, offering her the ultimate gift of inclusion. Days blurred into a whirlwind of wonder. It was more than a diplomatic visit. It was a profound act of cultural exchange. Anya, the hardened soldier, found herself lost in the symphony of alien music, its intricate melodies stirring echoes of emotions she'd long buried. She tasted food that burst with unfamiliar flavors, sweet and tangy, awakening senses beyond simple sustenance. They led her through grand libraries carved from living crystal, where history shimmered in bioluminescent patterns, weaving sagas of a collective memory unlike anything in human records. She witnessed children learning not through dry formulas and rote memorization, but through shared mental landscapes where concepts blossomed into dazzling displays of light and resonant melodies. Evenings were spent in the quiet company of the child and its family. With painstaking effort, they communicated in a fractured mix of gestures, crude translation, and the universal language of shared laughter. Anya told stories of Earth, fumbling tales of heroes and fools, of bustling cities, and the quiet solitude of wilderness. She saw echoes of recognition in the shifting lights of their eyes, the shared sparks of courage, love, and the bittersweet ache of loss that transcended species. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of profound misunderstanding when Anya's ingrained suspicion clashed with their open sense of community. Their reverence for life in all forms made the realities of human conflict seem barbaric, their lack of individual ambition, a baffling concept born from their deep connectedness. Yet, with each clash, with every fumbled apology and painstaking explanation, the bridges grew stronger. Anya started to grasp the beauty of their interconnectedness, the way generosity fostered strength, not weakness, and they, in turn, began to see that humanity's individual drive, its sometimes reckless ambition, could be a force for good, not just destruction. One evening, as crimson suns dipped below the horizon, they showed her the sacred grove. Here, their ancestors lived on, shimmering memories entwined within the luminous trees. The child extended a hand towards Anya, and a ripple of light flowed along the tendril-like branches, illuminating a figure from the past. It was her, kneeling amidst the rubble, offering food to a frightened, blue-skinned child. The memory was seen through their eyes, not an act of strategy, not a military maneuver, but an echo of compassion in a desolate wasteland. Anya, hardened by countless battles, wept before the simple beauty of her own reflection. The news of Anya's return to Earth shattered the fragile peace she'd nurtured. The media descended, a frenzy of intrusive cameras and flashing lights, demanding sound bites about the monstrous aliens or heroic exploits. Politicians circled like vultures, eager to twist her journey into fuel for their agendas. Yet there was a stark contrast: the countless messages of hope and solidarity that flooded her inbox, a testament to the yearning of ordinary people for a connection beyond their own world. Anya felt torn, pulled in 1,000 directions at once. Her military instincts screamed at the vulnerability of her position, the way she'd become a nexus in a struggle far bigger than herself. But an unexpected wisdom, hard-won on an alien world, whispered that vulnerability wasn't a sign of weakness, but a necessary part of forging true understanding. Her debriefing became a performance, carefully crafted recitations of harmless facts, and skillful deflection of inquiries designed to find exploitable cracks in the aliens' defenses. Each question, veiled in strategic analysis, left a bitter taste in her mouth. They were missing the point, blinded by fear and ambition, unable to grasp the profound shift she had felt within herself. Word came down that she was to be honored at a public gala. Anya, already uncomfortable with the spotlight, saw the danger instantly. They would parade her like a trophy, proof of humanity's supposed dominance, stoking the flames of fear and suspicion. The child, with his uncanny ability to sense her turmoil, reached out across the vast gulf of space. His transmission was filled with the image of their brightly lit, fragile cities, a silent plea for her to protect not just his home, but the delicate trust they'd painstakingly built. Anya made her decision. The night of the gala, as dignitaries and socialites preened under the glare of chandeliers, Anya stood on the grand stage. Around her swirled the familiar trappings of power: crisp uniforms, practiced smiles, and speeches polished to a hollow sheen. She looked at the eager crowd, the expectant faces searching for heroism or alien horrors, and a fierce sort of love bloomed within her. For the terrified child halfway across the cosmos, for the soldier she'd been, and the person she was becoming, Anya refused to be their weapon. "I won't do this," she began, her voice echoing through the hushed hall. "I won't let you turn kindness into conquest." The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. Anya ignored the chaos, her gaze unwavering. She painted them a picture, not of monsters and battlefields, but of a civilization shaped by connection, of shimmering cities teeming with a vibrant aliveness that humanity desperately needed. "They offered me a gift," she continued, her chin lifted in defiance. "The gift of seeing beyond ourselves. If that makes me a traitor, then so be it." The words hung heavy in the lavish hall. Anya braced herself for the backlash, for the accusations and condemnations. But something extraordinary happened. A single clap rang out, then another. A ripple swelled through the crowd, hesitation morphing into the bold clamor of something long suppressed. The aftermath was a whirlwind of tension and fragile triumph. The military, caught off guard by her public defiance, scrambled to control the narrative. Anya found herself suspended, a pawn whose next move was yet to be determined. But the seeds of change had been sown, fueled by her refusal to play her assigned role. Across the globe, something shifted. Protests sparked, not of aggression, but of curiosity tinged with a hopeful yearning. Anya, from her confined quarters, became the focus of a movement she hadn't intended to start. The people, tired of endless cycles of war, saw in her an unexpected symbol, the soldier who dared to dream of peace. Offers of support arrived in a dizzying rush. Idealistic lawyers argued her case, their legal battles waged not in courtrooms, but in the fickle arena of public opinion. Seasoned diplomats, sidelined and disillusioned with the endless brinkmanship, reached out, offering their expertise to steer a fledgling peace movement towards viability. Even figures within the scientific community, drawn by the potential of an intellectually advanced civilization, voiced their dissent with the prevailing hardline stance. Anya wasn't naive. She knew true peace would be fought for over years, fraught with setbacks and compromises. There was no guarantee the aliens, despite their initial overtures, would maintain their stance when faced with the complexity of interstellar diplomacy. Yet a chance, a fragile flicker of possibility, now burned brightly, and she would dedicate everything to protecting that flame. A message filtered through, relayed from the edge of the solar system. It wasn't the cold calculus of diplomatic exchange, but the child's hauntingly sweet melody. A simple song of gratitude, of shared hope and unwavering trust. It transcended words, a melody woven from the threads that connected them across the immeasurable gulf of space. Drawing upon newfound strength, Anya straightened her spine. She wasn't the grunt following orders anymore, nor the anomaly lauded by the crowd. She was the link, the bridge, however imperfect, between two worlds, two species, forever changed by an act of simple kindness. The fight wasn't over. In many ways, it had just begun. Anya knew it would be the hardest, most uncertain battle of her life. Yet, as the child's song resonated in her heart, she faced the future with a determination unlike any she'd known before. This wasn't about dominance, nor strategy, nor the fleeting accolades of victory. This was about the fierce, unyielding hope of a soldier who had finally discovered what she was truly fighting for. Months turned into years, an intricate dance of fragile diplomacy and relentless public pressure. Anya became a strategist of a different kind, navigating the treacherous waters of political maneuvering with the focus she'd honed on battlefields. Her heart and resolve found new purpose, fueled by the unbreakable echo of the child's song amidst the cold halls of power. It was a war of attrition, of countless small victories and demoralizing setbacks. Hardliners clung to their fear-based rhetoric, fueling public suspicion with warnings of alien treachery. Yet the tide inexorably turned. Anya, the human face of intergalactic outreach, became a counterpoint their fear-mongering couldn't erase. Cultural exchanges began, tentative at first. Alien musicians, their compositions stirring and profound, played to audiences holding their breath in a mixture of awe and lingering apprehension. Human artists shared their works, raw and expressive, revealing a depth beyond the aliens' initial perception of a single-minded, warlike species. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A malfunction in the orbital defense grid triggered a panic, the ghost of old wars threatening to rekindle the flames of distrust. Anya, now an unofficial advisor with tenuous authority, stepped into the breach. Leveraging her connection with the aliens and her own hard-won tactical knowledge, she pinpointed the fault as a technical glitch, not an act of aggression. The crisis, instead of spiraling into conflict, became a testament to the potential for collaboration. With each step forward, the pushback amplified. Threats turned sinister, shadows moving against her in a desperate attempt to silence the voice that championed connection. Anya, ever the warrior, refused to cower. For the memory of a lost child on a desolate world, for the yearning faces in the protesting crowds, and the stubborn belief in a kinder future, she held her ground. The historic day dawned with a blend of trepidation and breathless anticipation. An alien delegation, resplendent in their shimmering forms, was to set foot on Earth for the first time. Anya greeted them, not as a soldier nor a diplomat, but simply as a human being extending the hand of friendship. The moment their tendril touched hers, a shockwave rippled through the crowd. Not of fear, but of a profound shift. History was being made, not with treaties or power plays, but with a gesture echoing the simple act of offering sustenance amidst ruins. The years that followed were a whirlwind of transformation. Contact zones bloomed, meticulously neutral spaces where humans and aliens interacted with a cautious blend of curiosity and respect. Scientists marveled at the elegant efficiency of alien technology, while artists reveled in collaborations that defied the boundaries of known aesthetics. Anya found her niche, the warrior-turned-peacemaker whose unique blend of skills was vital to the delicate balance being forged. She trained a new generation of diplomats, not in strategy or linguistic trickery, but in the art of recognizing common ground, of seeing shared vulnerabilities beneath the dazzlingly different exteriors. Life was never easy. Mistrust lingered, fueled by the isolated flare-ups of inevitable misunderstandings. Age-old prejudices remained, on both sides, resistant to the messy reality of forging a new path. Anya saw darkness flare within her own species' greed, the lust for power that could so easily turn their wondrous discovery into a relentless drive for domination. And she fought. Not on battlefields with weapons of destruction, but in conference rooms filled with endless debate, on media platforms where the battle for hearts and minds raged, and in the quiet of her own home where she wrestled with doubt and the lingering trauma of her past. The child was a constant beacon, now a maturing youth within his own society. Their communication, though still bridged with the aid of translation, was woven through with shared memories and the fierce, unspoken understanding between two beings forever bound by a shared act of trust. He sent her images of his world flourishing with innovation, inspired by the spark of human ingenuity, of grand symphonies that incorporated the chaotic beauty of earth music, a testament to the richness born from connection. Anya, in turn, shared images of children, human children, and alien children laughing together in the sunlight, their games a universal language needing no subtitles. She sent him news of hard-won victories, of treaties halting weapons development, of collaborative efforts to heal the environmental scars on war-torn worlds, a testament to the possibility of a future not built on endless conflict. One day, as streaks of silver began to thread through her battle-scarred hair, a message came. It wasn't a plea for help, nor a celebration of progress. It was a simple invitation, echoing the one she'd received so long ago. "Corporal Anya, would you honor us with your presence?" No longer the soldier, nor the diplomat, but simply Anya, she smiled, tears blurring her vision. Wars hadn't ended. Suffering still lingered in the shadows of both their worlds. But hope, stubborn and enduring, bloomed like wildflowers amidst the rubble. She booked passage on a ship bound for the shimmering cities of a world she now called a second home. The journey was tinged with melancholy, yet an unshakable excitement burned in her chest. For she wasn't just traveling across the galaxy, but towards the echo of a frightened child's trust, a testament to the extraordinary power of a single, simple act of kindness. Stepping back onto the alien world was a homecoming tinged with bittersweet joy. The crystalline city shimmered in a vibrant welcome, yet the familiar beauty was infused with a profound awareness of change she embodied. Anya was no longer the lost soldier stumbling through a terrifying unknown, but a bridge personified, a symbol of the potential for understanding. They greeted her not as a spectacle, but as a cherished friend. Children, eyes wide with a familiar curiosity, touched her scarred hands with tender care, a silent acknowledgement of the battles fought and lessons learned. Elders, their shimmering forms vibrant with collective memory, regarded her with respect born not from fear or dominion, but a shared history of trust painstakingly built. The child, now a tall, luminous figure radiating strength and wisdom, stood before her. No translators were needed. Years of shared moments had forged a bond deeper than words. In the shifting light of his eyes, she saw not blind adoration, but the clear-sighted awareness of her flaws, her struggles, and the profound beauty of her tenacious hope. Together, they walked familiar paths, Anya sharing the advancements in human society, the shaky alliances, the focus on healing fractured ecologies, the art and literature that explored their newfound connection with breathtaking vulnerability. In turn, they showed her the blossoming of their society, the fusion of their organic technology with human ingenuity, the shared educational systems where children of both species learned empathy at a fundamental level. And finally, they came to the sacred grove. Shimmering memories danced amidst the luminescent branches, their history unfurling like a tapestry woven with starlight. In its brilliance, Anya saw her own image transformed, not the hardened soldier nor the lauded diplomat, but simply a woman who dared to offer a hand in kindness and, in doing so, had altered the fate of two worlds. The child reached out, his touch a gentle hum against her skin. With a shared breath, they activated the memory, not the fearful alien lost among ruins, but Anya in her own childhood, clutching a tattered doll amidst the wreckage of a different war. They saw the echo of shared trauma, the spark of resilience that had carried them through. Anya wept, the tears a release of 1,000 pent-up battles, and the breathtaking understanding that the seeds of peace are often sown in the desolate soil of shared suffering. In the days that followed, there were no speeches, no grand pronouncements. Simply presence, shared experiences, and the quiet joy of companionship forged in the crucible of unexpected circumstances. Anya, the woman hardened by conflict, found a strange and profound peace amidst the wonder of an alien world, a peace built not on the absence of strife, but on the unwavering belief in the potential for connection. Her time to return to Earth approached. The parting was filled with unspoken promises their bond needed no treaties or formalized pledges to remain strong. Anya stood once more at the edge of the shimmering portal, the child's luminous figure beside her vibrant against the twilight. As she stepped through, she looked back at the breathtaking beauty of the world she was leaving. And then, with a determined smile, she turned and faced her own planet, a flicker of alien light in her eyes. She was no longer the kindness soldier, a title born from a single extraordinary act. She was a warrior for a different kind of battle, the tireless champion of the messy, fragile, and eternally hopeful possibility of understanding.